Hi families, it's Mr. Cotter. As you'll know from reading our email updates, we've been working on addition and subtraction right now in grade 3. We've been working both on mental math strategies and also standard algorithm with regrouping. So I wanted to share with you a game that we played today. This game is actually really similar to working with a worksheet, but of course the fact that it's more interactive makes it a lot more interesting and tends to keep our attention a lot longer. There's also a great component to this that students have to not only be thinking about the addition and subtraction, but also their understanding of number sense and how numbers can be changed and altered for different purposes. So currently this is called the card game with no name. After you've watched the video and hopefully played around of it, maybe you'll find a better name for it and you can let me know in the comments or by email. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to play the basic version of this game with addition, and then I'll tell you about some different variations at the end. So for this game, the first thing that you're going to need is a standard deck of cards and pencil or paper. I like using whiteboard and marker. We use a lot of that in grade 3. With your standard deck of cards, you're just going to want the aces through nines, all your single digits, and you are putting aside for now your jacks, queens, kings, jokers, and your tens because they're a 2-digit number. And I'll tell you about a variation you can play later on that does use the 10. So we're going to set those aside for now. I'm just going to shuffle up my cards. I'm playing this game for real with you right now, so I have not loaded the deck at all. And if I'm playing with a partner, then after I've shuffled the deck, then I'm actually just going to cut the deck approximately in half, and I'm going to give each person their own little half deck. So if I'm going first, I'm going to take my first 3 cards and I'm going to flip them over. And this is going to become a 3-digit number. So right now I have 178. Now here I need to tell you about the basic aim of the game. You are trying to add numbers together and get the greatest possible sum. That's in this variation of the game. So if I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, I've got 178 right now. That's not great. I think I could make more, of course. Oh, maybe if I do this. And now I have 871. If I want the greatest possible sum at the end, I think I'd rather have 800 something than 100 something, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put that down. And once I write down my number, it's locked in. I can't actually change the digits. And that becomes really important with other variations of the game. So my first 3-digit number is 871. I'm going to flip over my next 3 cards. And right now I've got 492. And I'm thinking here that, yeah, I want 900 rather than 400. So I'm going to flip those 2 numbers around. So now I'm going to be going with 871 plus 942. Okay, so those are the 2 numbers that I am adding today. So then I'm just going through my standard algorithm. I've got 1 and 2, which of course is 3. I've got 7 tens and 4 tens. Well, I know 7 and 3 makes 10, plus another one is 11. So I actually have 11 sets of 10, or 110. So I'm thinking, well, there's my 10 in the tens place, and I've made a new set of 100, which I'm bringing over here. Okay? From there, you might have different ways of looking at this. Maybe you're going to say, well, I know 100 and 900 is actually going to be 1000 or 1000, plus my 800 more makes 1800. Some kids might look at it and say, well, 1 and 8 is 9, and then 9 and 9, my doubles, is actually going to be 18. So I would have 1800 or 1800. And I like to always carry the 1000 over because that's what we're doing in all the other steps is we're carrying over when it doesn't fit in that column. And then I can just look at my thousands and say, well, there's only the one that I've just created. So my total points for this particular sum is 1813. Okay. So at that point, I would just put those cards aside, and then my partner would get to go. And they're hoping that they're going to make a sum that is greater than 1813. Okay? At that point, whoever has the biggest sum wins that round. Here's where the variations come into play. You might choose to keep playing for a certain number of rounds. Maybe it's going to be whoever has the most total points after 10 rounds is the winner. So you would actually take this 1,813 and add it to whatever you get in the next hand and the next hand. You could play that whoever gets to 10,000 first is going to be the winner. So then not only are you always adding your 3-digit numbers, but you're going to start practicing adding up 4-digit numbers in the next round. There is another variation, of course, that you can play. If you wanted to have some zeros in this, remember I said take out the 10s at the beginning? Well, if you'd like to play with 0 as a possible digit, why don't you just include the 10s and say, well, we can't fit 10 as a single digit, so this is actually going to count as a 0 instead. Okay, so it seems really exciting if you get a 10, but in fact it actually counts for a 0 digit. Okay. If you're playing with younger kids or need the earlier practice, then maybe you only play with 2-digit numbers that you are adding. You can also, of course, play with other operations as well. Maybe you're going to play with subtraction instead, where you have to be figuring out, well, how am I going to line up these cards so that I get the greatest possible difference or the least possible difference? Maybe you want to play for the least possible sum. So I'd be looking at, oh, if I have 871, maybe I do want to flip those around if I'm going to have the least possible sum. So there's a lot of variations you can play with this game. You can even play a game without any board if you wanted to practice your mental math, where you are really just laying out, and I like to keep mental math at 2-digit numbers, where you're just laying out your cards like this and thinking, okay, if I have 66 plus 23, how am I going to deal with that? With mental math, some people might still start with the ones and say, I know this makes 9 and this makes 8, or 8 sets of 10, so I've got 89. Some people then would rather say, well, I'm going to say this part first. I'm going to say 60 and 20 is 80, plus 6 more is 86, 87, 88, 89. So there's another strategy that you could do if you're practicing that mental math. And that's a great one to practice with younger kids as well. So there's lots of variations you can play to this game. It's a nice simple one for a rainy day. Doesn't really take long to set up or take down. Let me know what you think of it. And like I said, if you can think of a better name than the card game with no name, let me know that in the comments or send me an email. Okay? Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you soon.